They said family never turns its back on you, but mine did. The moment I stopped being useful. One day I was a mother, a provider, a pillar. The next I was just an old woman in the way. My own son told me I was a burden and dropped me in a nursing home like yesterday's trash. But what he didn't know was that I had one last card to play, and I played it quietly, strategically, with money, with memory, and with the kind of vengeance only a calm, betrayed mother can deliver. This isn't just my story. It's the story of so many women who gave everything and were repaid with silence, betrayal, and stolen dignity. But I didn't stay broken. I got smart. I fought back. And if you've ever felt like someone tried to erase you, this story is for you. Before we dive into it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. That way, you won't miss the next powerful stories we bring. Because trust me, this is just the beginning. I was never the loud type. I raised Jason with steady hands and quiet strength. I cooked, saved every dollar, paid the bills on time, and held this family together through storms they never even saw. And yet one day, my own son looked me in the eye and said I was slowing him down, that I was too old, too much. Next thing I knew, I was sitting in a cold lobby, signing papers I couldn't fully read, papers that led to my forced admission into a nursing home. That's how they did it. Asillamento forzado, and they called it help. It wasn't the food or the thin mattress that broke me. It was the sound of that door locking behind me. Jason and his wife, Danielle, told the staff I had lost my mind. They claimed I couldn't manage my own life, my own money, my own name. Lies. All of it. I remember my bank passwords better than Jason remembers our anniversaries. But that didn't matter. With a forged power of attorney, they emptied my accounts and moved into my home like I had already died. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated, cold-hearted fraud, familiar. While they slept in my bed, I lay awake in that sterile room, listening to the hum of machines and the shuffle of forgotten feet. I kept thinking, this is what I raised him for, to throw me away like last season's shoes. But I didn't cry. I took mental notes, dates, names, passwords. A nurse named Anna slipped me a phone one night. God bless her. That's when I called Monica, my old lawyer and one of the smartest women I know. That moment was the beginning of my quiet revenge. Abandonment cuts deep, but it also clears the path. I realized I had two choices: fade quietly into the system or fight. And believe me, I had enough money, memory, and motivation to choose the latter. Jason thought I was weak. That being old meant I was powerless. He forgot who taught him how to budget, how to negotiate, how to survive. And while he celebrated his new life in my living room, I was laying the foundation for justice and a legacy that wouldn't include him. There's something strange that happens when you sit in silence long enough. You start hearing yourself again. In that lonely room, with white walls and locked windows, I stopped crying and started thinking. I wrote everything down. My social security number, the names on each utility bill, the dates of when Jason first accessed my bank accounts. I even remembered the drawer where I kept the notarized copy of my original will. He may have stolen my money, but not my memory. That would be his first mistake. I knew I couldn't just walk out and scream, fraud. No one listens to an old woman in a robe. So I had to play the long game. Every morning I observed what forms they filed, who signed them, what medications they gave the others without question. I saw the patterns, and in the middle of all that, Anna, the nurse with soft hands and sharper eyes, became my ally. She believed me. She saw the quiet rage in me, and when I whispered, "I need a lawyer," she didn't ask why. She just handed me her phone. Calling Monica felt like taking a deep breath after weeks underwater. She hadn't heard from me in years, but when I said, "They stole everything," her voice turned steel. She asked for names, documents. I had them all. I dictated line by line from memory, while pretending to talk to my niece. We couldn't risk suspicion. The staff thought I was rambling stories. Funny, isn't it? They mistook survival strategy for senility. That, my dear, was their second mistake. While Jason was cashing checks in my name, I was setting legal traps in his. Monica began digging, quietly and thoroughly. I wasn't just reclaiming my money. I was preparing for a reckoning. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about dignity. About every elderly woman who'd been shoved aside, told she was a burden, denied her legacy. I wasn't alone, and that truth gave me strength. I had a mission now, and soon, Jason would learn what a real burden looks like. It didn't take long for Monica to find the cracks. The power of attorney Jason filed had signatures that didn't match my writing. The date it was supposedly signed. I was in the hospital that week, recovering from a mild fall. That alone was enough to question the whole thing. Monica filed an emergency petition, backed by pages of handwritten notes I'd passed her through Anna. One by one, the pieces of Jason's little empire began to fall apart, and I finally exhaled. We scheduled a competency hearing. Jason didn't show. Danielle sent a lawyer instead. Some slick young man who kept calling me ma'am, like I was a lost tourist. But the judge, bless him, looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Mrs. Adams, do you understand what's happening today?" I told him the exact value of my checking account, the interest on my mortgage-free house, and the year I purchased every stock I still owned. He didn't ask me a second time. The forged power of attorney, revoked. My legal capacity, fully restored. The house, still in my name. The look on Danielle's lawyer's face when the ruling came down. Oh, that was something. You don't forget moments like that. And though I didn't smile in court, I smiled later that night, lying in that same narrow bed, knowing justice had started to shift in my favor. Slowly, but surely, I was peeling off the labels they had tried to stick on me. Confused, burden, forgotten. But this was more than personal. Every time someone calls us old and slow, they forget we've lived entire lives before they learn to tie their shoes. They forget we built legacies. Jason tried to erase mine with a pen and a lie, but I held the ink of truth. And the thing about truth, it stains. I was just getting started. My hands may have aged, but they still knew how to fight for what was mine. The day I stepped foot back into my own home, it didn't feel like home anymore. Danielle's perfume still lingered in the hallway. Jason's shoes sat by the door like he paid for them. But the deed said otherwise. It was mine. Every tile, every brick, every dollar that bought it. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I simply handed them both an envelope. Inside, a formal notice of eviction. No hugs. No tears. Just justice served room temperature. They argued, of course. Said they had nowhere to go. Claimed the money was family money. As if abandonment had become a family value. Jason screamed something about betrayal. I laughed. Not loudly. But the kind of laugh that comes from realizing how far someone's fallen without noticing. He wasn't angry I was back. He was scared. Scared that the woman he called a burden still had the power to turn his life upside down. And that's exactly what I did. I sold the house. Not because I needed the money. Though, believe me, that money came in handy. But because I didn't want a single wall holding their memories. I found a sweet young couple expecting their first child. I saw myself in her. Young, hopeful, nervous. I sold it below market just to make it faster. Took every cent, closed the deal with a smile, and walked out with my head high and my legacy clean. They packed their things in silence. I didn't offer help, and what did I do with the money? Oh, I made a move they'd never expect. Not a vacation, not a car. I bought the house right next door. I wanted them to see me, thriving, free, not broken, not bitter, just quietly victorious. That, to me, was the sweetest form of revenge. No shouting, no scenes, just the simple, undeniable fact that I had won. And believe me, that truth echoed through the walls louder than any argument ever could. The curtains in my new house swayed just right. From the kitchen window I could see Jason's porch, where he used to sit in my old rocking chair. My mother's chair, mind you. Now, I sipped tea while watching him walk past the mailbox, pretending not to see me. I didn't wave. I didn't need to. My presence did the talking. Every flower I planted, every light I turned on, reminded him that the woman he tried to bury had just moved in next door, brighter than ever. It wasn't about torment. I wasn't interested in shouting matches or petty revenge. This was something far more powerful. Visibility, living well, living right beside the ones who tried to erase you, is a kind of vengeance they can't defend against. Every time Jason saw me smiling at my rose garden or walking Tyler to school, it chipped away at whatever illusion of control he had left. That's what I call a quiet, strategic legacy, one you build in plain sight. And I didn't stop there. I started a small weekly gathering. Just tea, stories, and laughter with other women from the neighborhood. A few had faced their own versions of abandonment, their own stolen dignity. We'd sit in the sun, talking about money, justice, and resilience, as if they were recipes passed down through generations. And in a way, they were. Women like us don't grow bitter. We grow wise. And wisdom. It never goes out of style. I never knocked on Jason's door. Never asked how he was doing. I already knew. Danielle's car was parked elsewhere more often now. His garden was wilting. Mail piled up. The cracks were forming. And I didn't have to lift a single finger. My only weapon was presence. My only plan was peace. But let me tell you something I've learned. Nothing makes the guilty more uncomfortable than watching the one they tried to break stand taller than ever, right next door. It started with fewer cars in the driveway. Then came the shouting. Quiet at first, then louder, breaking through the thin walls between us. Danielle was unraveling. The life they'd stolen was slipping through their fingers, and resentment was spreading like mold. One morning I saw her toss a suitcase into her trunk, slam the door, and drive off without saying goodbye. That was the day Jason truly became alone. Not because I made him, because he had made himself impossible to stay with. I didn't celebrate it. Loneliness is not a prize. But there was something about watching consequences arrive, unannounced, that felt honest. Danielle couldn't take the weight of the lie anymore. The money was gone. The comfort had turned to tension. And when things get tight, people stop pretending. Their foundation was built on greed and fraud, not love or dignity. So it crumbled. And when it did, something unexpected happened. Tyler, their son, knocked on my door. He didn't have to say much. His backpack told the story. I made him tea and let him talk when he was ready. Turns out he'd seen more than they thought, heard the phone calls, noticed the way they spoke about me like I was disposable. He didn't want to be part of that. Grandma, he said, I don't want to end up like them. That boy. He reminded me why we fight, why we reclaim our name, our money, our place, not just for justice, for the legacy we leave behind. Having him there shifted everything. The house felt warm again. We planted tomatoes together, cooked cheap but hearty meals, talked about books and life. That lasso como neto became my anchor. Through his eyes I saw hope, not ruin. And maybe, just maybe, that's the true revenge. Not punishment, but restoration. A quiet rewriting of the family story, where love grows in the shadow of betrayal, and trust, once broken, finds new soil to bloom. The first thing I did was rewrite my will, not out of spite, but clarity. Jason's name, erased, not even a footnote. Every penny, every asset, every piece of land and stock would go to Tyler. He had chosen love over convenience, truth over comfort. That kind of courage deserves more than praise. It deserves opportunity. And I intended to give him that. I wasn't just passing down money. I was passing down dignity. A legacy no one could steal or fake. But that wasn't enough. I kept thinking about the other women in the nursing home. The ones without lawyers, without a nas, without anyone to believe them. Some of them still had minds sharper than steel, but their voices were buried under paperwork and shame. That's when the idea came. A grant, something small at first, funded with what remained of my inheritance, money that had once been seen as a burden, now transformed into empowerment, a soft rebellion disguised as generosity. We named it the Second Bloom Fund. Simple, quiet, focused entirely on women over 60 who had faced abandonment, fraud, or forced institutionalization. We helped them get legal aid, housing support, and sometimes just a pair of glasses and a fresh haircut before their court date. Small things that reminded them, you're still here, and you still matter. That's the thing about justice. It's not just in court rulings. Sometimes it's in how you make someone feel seen again. Watching Tyler help me with the applications, reviewing each case like it was sacred, it brought a peace I hadn't known in years. He wasn't just inheriting my estate, he was inheriting my mission. Together we weren't just healing from the past. We were rewriting what family means, what legacy means. And every woman we helped, she became part of that legacy too. Quiet warriors rising again, not with noise, but with purpose. It was a rainy Tuesday when Jason came to my door. No call, no warning, just his silhouette under a dripping hood. He looked smaller than I remembered. Time, regret, or both had taken their toll. I let him in, not because I owed him anything, but because closure sometimes needs a face. He sat at the edge of the couch, eyes low, voice barely above a whisper. Mom, I messed up. I don't want money. I just want forgiveness. I listened. That was all. He cried. Said Danielle was gone for good. Said he couldn't sleep at night, thinking about what he did. I could feel the weight in his voice, but I didn't rush to ease it. I'd spent too many nights alone in that nursing home, clutching my chest from the sting of betrayal. Forgiveness, that's not a switch you flip. It's a journey, and while I may have opened the door, I made it clear. Reconciliation doesn't mean restoration. Some things stay broken. I told him, I'm at peace now. You can visit if Tyler allows it. You can call if you need to talk, but you're no longer part of my estate. That's not punishment. It's consequence. He nodded quietly, didn't argue. For once he understood that money is never just money. It's tied to dignity, to memory, to every sacrifice a mother makes in silence. And when you treat your mother like a burden, you don't get to inherit her legacy. You forfeit it. There was no yelling, no dramatic exit. He stood up, wiped his face, and walked to the door. I'm sorry, he said one last time. I didn't say it back, but I nodded, a soft nod that said, I heard you. Now live with it. And just like that, he stepped into the rain, and I stood still, breathing deeply, not bitter, not triumphant, just grounded. The weight of justice at last, evenly distributed. Days turned into weeks, and Jason's visits grew further apart. No more awkward silences over coffee. No more attempts to rewrite what had already been written. One day I looked out the window and saw a moving truck. No knock on the door, no goodbye. Just boxes being loaded and a mailbox left open. He left like he lived most of his adult life, running from consequence, hoping silence would erase what memory won't. But silence, my dear, is where truth echoes loudest. I didn't chase after him. I didn't need closure wrapped in a farewell. His departure wasn't an ending. It was a chapter turning on its own. In his absence, peace returned like a tide coming in after a long, violent storm. The air in the neighborhood changed. Lighter, quieter, and Tyler. He didn't ask where his father went. He just looked at me one morning while we folded laundry and said, I'm glad you stayed. That was enough. It's strange how justice doesn't always arrive in fireworks. Sometimes it shows up in the form of stillness. No court battles, no headlines, just the quiet knowing that what was broken is no longer in your hands, and you're better for it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. And now I had both. I could finally walk through my days without the shadow of betrayal pulling at my heels. I started waking up before sunrise again, reading, planting, teaching Tyler how to make a proper budget, down to the last dollar, the kind of money talk Jason never cared to learn. I didn't feel joy in Jason's fall. What I felt was peace, a kind of sacred, earned stillness that comes from knowing you've done what was right. I hadn't just survived. I'd reclaimed my dignity and kept my soul intact. These days I wake up with purpose again, not because everything is perfect, but because I'm finally living on my own terms. Tyler and I have built a life filled with small joys. Breakfast on the porch, shared grocery lists, quiet reading evenings. He's no longer just my grandson. He's my partner in rebuilding what was nearly stolen. The house feels full, but not crowded. Warm, but not loud. Peaceful, yet alive. I've started speaking at local events, small gatherings at libraries, senior centers, churches. I tell my story not for sympathy, but for strength. I remind women that abandonment doesn't define us, that money, once taken, can be reclaimed, that a legacy lost to a child's betrayal can be reborn in a grandchild's love. And every time I see someone nod with teary eyes, I know I'm not just surviving, I'm planting seeds. The most beautiful part of this new life isn't the house or the garden, or even the legal victory. It's the dignity I got back, the knowledge that I'm not a burden, and never was, that I carry a story worth telling, not in anger, but in empowerment, and that through that story, other women might find the courage to reclaim their own. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come from the courts. It comes from living well despite it all. So I keep going, quietly, steadily, loving Tyler, building the grant, laughing more often. And when someone asks how I got through it, I smile and say, one memory, one boundary, $1 at a time. Now tell me, what would you have done if your own child stripped you of your home, your dignity, and called it love? Would you stay silent, or rise slowly, smartly, and with purpose? Because the truth is, we all reach a moment where we must decide, do we let them define us as a burden, or do we rewrite the story with our own hands? You don't need a fortune to reclaim your power. Sometimes all it takes is a firm no, a well-kept document, or the courage to ask for help. What legacy are you building today? And who really deserves to inherit it? I'd love to hear from you. What part of this story hit closest to home for you? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your voice truly matters here. If this story moved you in any way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another episode like this. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It warms my heart to see how far these stories are reaching.